Hi, today I'd like to talk about past life regression and famous past lives. Um, One thing that you always hear in criticisms of past life regression hypnosis is that every woman is Cleopatra, every man is Julius Caesar, whoever. But the consistent thing is that they'll say every woman was Cleopatra. Um, every man was some great man, whatever. Now, I've done over 1,500 past life regressions in my career doing hypnosis, and I find it extremely uncommon to have people with famous past lives. It's absolutely not the norm. It's far more the norm for people to have, really hard past lives where they were very poor, where all kinds of horrible things happened to them. That's far more common than any kind of glamorous past life, right? So there is a misconception that past life regression is this big ego fest of imagining ourselves in these glamorous past lives. Actually, what it really is more is that people go to past traumas from past lives, relive them, and clear that energy. And so just realize that you can have famous past lives, right? But it's not the norm. Just like it's not the norm to be famous in this life, right? Very few people are famous compared to how many people exist. Um, Now, that being said, some people do go to famous past lives. But here's the interesting thing. Normally, when people see a famous past life, they really resist it. When people do past life regression, a lot of times they're in doubt, right? They're skeptical about what they're seeing. And so when people see themselves in a famous past life, that actually makes the doubt a lot stronger. See, the ego wants to own everything. The ego wants to take credit for everything. And so the ego would love to have all kinds of amazing past lives where it was just, where you were some famous, world-changing, whatever kind of person, right? But the fact is, even if you went to a past life where you were rich or famous, you would probably go to some level of trauma or some level of mistake that you made that you're maybe still in that pattern now. The only reason, not the only reason, the main reason to do past life regression is to wipe the slate clean and to get clear of your life purpose. Okay? So when I say wipe the slate clean, I mean anything that is lingering from past lives that is impacting you now, that's something that you want to clear up. You don't want to walk around dealing with trauma from 1642. You want to clear that up, and and then you want to be clear on what you're doing here. What are you doing in this life? What is your purpose? What are your talents? What are your skills? And the past life that is famous is something that, on the one hand, you might find that you abused your power on some level, and that's something that you need to even see how you might be doing that on a smaller scale, on a different level right now, and let go of that pattern. And then there also might be things that you suffer from in this life, that some qualities that you had in a past life could be kind of an antidote, right? So, for example, I had somebody the other day who went to a very famous past life, and it's somebody that suffers from shyness. And in the other past life, the famous past life, this person was known as an orator, among other things. And so it's kind of like we take that quality of having the confidence to give a speech and all of that, and the person relives that during their regression, and it kind of gives them a little bit of that quality. Now, another thing is, people have had a lot of past lives. A lot of people have had hundreds of past lives. In all of those lives, it wouldn't be that weird if you were famous once or twice. You know, famous on whatever level, not necessarily world famous. So it's not that strange when you put it, right? The more past lives that somebody would have, the more chances that they'd be famous in one of those lives. That's just logic, I think. But here's the main thing that I tell people if they have a past life that is famous, and if they're really in resistance to it. Because I had a similar experience myself, and a very wise client of mine, who I don't necessarily agree with 100%, but he gave me this idea. And I think if you find yourself experiencing memories of a famous past life, this is something that can just help your ego detach from owning it too much. Imagine that you're in a soul group. And imagine that the energy of the soul group, let's say it's 100 souls, it's 100 people, right? And let's say all the soul energy of those 100 people, let's say it's a bucket of water, right, for our analogy. When anybody in that soul group is going to have a life, they would dip into that bucket of water, they would take a cup, let's say of soul energy, and then that would be their soul for this life. Now that cup would contain fragments, bits, molecules of everybody in the group, right? So you would have the wisdom, the knowledge of everybody in the group, and everybody would have that, right? So when you're done with that life, you've gotten more knowledge, you've gotten more wisdom, you pour your cup back into the bucket, stir it around, and then when it's time for another life, you take another cup out. So in this way of looking at things, and like I say, I don't totally agree with it, but I think it's a useful tool to not get too egotistical if you do see yourself with a famous past life. So then the deal would be everybody in the group would have access to the energy of the entire group. Everybody would then in the group, if they could have a past life regression, and they could regress to a past life of anybody in that soul group, because it's all mixed together, right? So it would be kind of like nobody would be the reincarnation of so-and-so, but everybody in the group, in a way, would be the reincarnation of that person, George Washington, whatever. So let's say George Washington is in a soul group, but that soul group contains 99 other people. And then, they all die, the energy goes back into the bucket, And then somebody's going to have another lifetime. They dip into the bucket, they take out a cup, and part of that energy will be George Washington. Then they go in that life, they have a past life regression, and then they say, oh man, I was George Washington in a past life. Well, kind of, right? But there is no you that was George Washington. It would not be a one-on-one thing. Now, like I said, I don't necessarily agree 100% with that, but I think that it's really important when you do past life regression not to use it as something that you go around gaining merit badges, that you add identification to the ego. Let's say if you were a bunch of famous past lives, it doesn't really matter on one level. It's information to have. But if you use it to bolster your ego, and you walk around like I was so-and-so, and, it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't help you advance spiritually. If you need to give a speech and you're terrified and you have crippling levels of fear and you can tap into a past life of somebody who's good at giving speeches, my brain just said, hopefully not Hitler. Hopefully not Hitler. Some people say, what if I was really bad in a past life? And I say to them, assume you were Hitler. And if you were, you've come a long way, you're doing well. I probably said that on another video, but I repeat myself a lot. So anyway, the thing is you don't want to add identity, right? You don't want to do past life regression just to bolster the ego with more stories of grandeur from past lives. Now, luckily, past life regression does not do that. In 99% of the cases, past life regression kind of tears the ego down. And in a good way. And because the ego is a kind of flinching mechanism of self-protection. And when we do that flinching of self-protection, what happens is we end up holding a bunch of crap inside of us. And so when we can let that go, it's a pretty positive thing. So anyway, famous past lives. They are not to bolster the ego. They are to give you a certain quality. Another thing that I haven't mentioned is sometimes people just have an innate knowing that they were a certain person. They have memories. And past life regression can just confirm the memory a lot of times. And sometimes it absolutely does not confirm it. And sometimes people don't like that. But better to know. So anyway, that's the way I deal with the idea of past life regression and famous past lives. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd be curious. And if you've had any past life regression where you were a famous person or were connected to a famous person, let me know about it. I'd be very curious to hear. If you need more information on my past life regression sessions, just check out andysway.com. And if you would like to, I'd be really happy if you would subscribe to this channel and click on that bell icon so you can see when new videos are coming up. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.